Benjamin, known as Ben to his few friends, was born in the heart of South Philadelphia in 1919. The city, with its bustling streets and vibrant communities, was a melting pot of cultures and traditions. It was a place where the American dream seemed within reach, yet for many it remained just that, a dream. Ben's early years were shaped by the sights, sounds, and struggles of this dynamic urban landscape. His neighborhood was a tapestry of grit and determination, where every corner told a story of resilience. The streets were alive with the hustle and bustle of daily life, from the vendors calling out their wares to the children playing games in the alleys. It was a community bound together by shared hardships and collective hopes, where dreams often collided with the harsh realities of the Great Depression. The economic downturn cast a long shadow over South Philadelphia, leaving many families struggling to make ends meet. Bread lines and soup kitchens became common sights, and the once thriving neighborhoods now bore the scars of financial despair. Life was far from idyllic for young Ben, growing up in a two-bedroom tenement with his parents and two younger siblings. The cramped quarters offered little privacy, and the constant noise and activity made it difficult to find a moment of peace. Despite the challenges, the family did their best to support one another, finding solace in their shared experiences. His father, a dock worker, struggled to provide for the family, his frustration often spilling over into anger and resentment. The long hours and grueling labor took a toll on him both physically and emotionally. He would come home exhausted, his face etched with the lines of worry and fatigue. The weight of his responsibilities seemed to crush his spirit, leaving little room for tenderness or affection. Ben's mother, though loving, bore the brunt of their financial strain, her spirit slowly ground down by hardship. She worked tirelessly to keep the household running, juggling multiple tasks with a weary determination. Her hands were always busy, whether mending clothes, preparing meals, or comforting her children. Yet, beneath her stoic exterior, the constant struggle left her feeling drained and defeated. Even as a child, Ben possessed a quiet intensity, a burning desire to prove himself. He was determined to rise above his circumstances, to carve out a better future for himself and his family. This drive set him apart from his peers, who often saw him as aloof or distant. But for Ben, it was a necessary shield, a way to protect his dreams from the harshness of reality. He excelled in physical activities, his natural athleticism evident in street games and schoolyard brawls. Whether it was a game of stickball or a spontaneous wrestling match, Ben's agility and strength made him a formidable opponent. These moments of triumph provided a brief escape from the struggles of his daily life, allowing him to feel a sense of accomplishment and pride. Yet beneath the tough exterior, Ben craved recognition and affection, particularly from his emotionally distant father. He longed for a word of praise, a sign of approval, something to show that his efforts were noticed and valued. But his father's silence was often more deafening than his anger, leaving Ben feeling invisible and unappreciated. He longed to bridge the chasm that separated them, to earn his father's grudging respect. Every small achievement, every minor victory, was an attempt to close the gap, to build a connection that seemed perpetually out of reach. Ben's efforts were tireless, but the distance between them only seemed to grow, a constant reminder of the emotional void in his life. But as the years passed, the gulf only seemed to widen, leaving Ben feeling unseen and unworthy. The lack of acknowledgement from his father cast a long shadow over his formative years, shaping his sense of self-worth and his understanding of love and validation. Despite his many talents and achievements, Ben's heart carried the weight of unfulfilled longing, a burden that would follow him into adulthood. The official narrative of Soulja Boy's origin story, carefully crafted by the Vaught American publicity machine, painted a picture of idyllic Americana. This narrative was not just a simple backstory, it was a meticulously designed piece of propaganda, meant to inspire and rally the American public during some of the most challenging times in the nation's history. The image of Soulja Boy was synonymous with the American dream, a beacon of hope and resilience. Ben was portrayed as the son of a war hero, raised on a farm in Iowa, embodying the wholesome values of the heartland. The farm was depicted as a place of hard work, family values, and simple pleasures, where Ben learned the virtues of honesty, integrity, and patriotism from his father. This idealized version of his upbringing was meant to resonate with the average American, who saw in Ben a reflection of their own lives and struggles. This fabricated biography served to solidify his image as the all-American boy, a symbol of hope and patriotism in a nation grappling with economic turmoil and the looming threat of war. The Great Depression had left deep scars on the American psyche, and the rise of fascism in Europe was a growing concern. In this context, Soldier Boy was more than just a superhero. He was a symbol of American resilience and the promise of a better future. The reality, however, was far less glamorous. The real story of Ben's upbringing was one of hardship and struggle, far removed from the idyllic scenes portrayed in the propaganda. The farm was not a place of prosperity, but one of constant toil and financial strain. The family often faced the harsh realities of rural life with little to no support from the outside world. Ben's father, a far cry from the decorated veteran of Vaught's propaganda, had never seen a day of combat. He was a man who had been left behind by the very country he had hoped to serve. His dreams of military glory had been dashed, leaving him a bitter and resentful figure. This bitterness seeped into every aspect of family life, creating an environment of tension and unfulfilled dreams. He remained bitter and resentful of his lot in life, his unfulfilled ambitions weighing heavily on the family. The constant financial struggles and the weight of his unachieved dreams created a household atmosphere that was anything but the wholesome, nurturing environment depicted in the propaganda. Ben's childhood was marked by these tensions, shaping him in ways that the public would never know. The carefully constructed facade of Soldier Boy's past served a dual purpose. It shielded the public from a less palatable truth, while simultaneously masking the deep-seated insecurities that plagued the man behind the mask. The image of Soldier Boy was a powerful tool, used to inspire and manipulate, but it was built on a foundation of lies and half-truths. The real Ben struggled with the weight of this false identity, constantly battling the gap between who he was and who he was supposed to be. This internal conflict was something that the public would never see, hidden behind the mask of the all-American hero. Ben's relationship with his father remained a defining force in his life, shaping his motivations and fueling his desire for validation. From a young age, Ben was acutely aware of his father's high expectations. His father, a man of few words and stern demeanor, rarely expressed affection or approval. This left Ben constantly guessing, always striving to decode the enigma that was his father's approval. Ben's childhood was a series of attempts to win his father's favor. He would bring home trophies and awards each time, hoping that this would be the moment his father would finally show a sign of pride. But the recognition he yearned for was always just out of reach, like a mirage in the desert. He yearned for his father's approval, striving to excel in every endeavor, hoping to finally earn the recognition that seemed perpetually out of reach. Whether it was on the sports field, in the classroom, or in his personal projects, Ben pushed himself to the limit. He believed that if he could just be the best, his father would have no choice but to acknowledge his efforts. He threw himself into sports, academics, and even took on odd jobs to contribute to the family income, all the while seeking a glimmer of pride in his father's eyes. He would wake up early to train, stay up late to study, and work weekends to help out financially. Each task was a step on the path to earning his father's elusive approval. Despite his relentless efforts, Ben's accomplishments were met with indifference. His father would often dismiss his achievements as insignificant, comparing them to his own past glories or the successes of others. This constant comparison made Ben feel like he was never enough, no matter how hard he tried. However, Ben's efforts were met with indifference, his accomplishments dismissed as insignificant. The lack of acknowledgement from his father was a heavy burden to bear. It made Ben question his worth and left him feeling isolated and unappreciated. His father's constant criticism and belittling remarks chipped away at Ben's already fragile self-esteem. Every harsh word and disapproving look was like a dagger to his heart, deepening the wounds of his insecurity. The more he tried to please his father, the more he felt like he was failing. The more he tried to please, the further away his father seemed to retreat, leaving Ben feeling like a perpetual disappointment. It was as if his father was an ever-receding horizon, always just out of reach no matter how fast Ben ran towards it. This unending chase left him exhausted and disheartened. This toxic dynamic fueled a simmering resentment within Ben, a deep-seated anger that he struggled to contain. He began to resent not just his father, but also himself for caring so much about his father's opinion. This internal conflict created a storm of emotions that he found increasingly difficult to manage. The anger would sometimes erupt in moments of frustration, leading to outbursts that only served to further alienate him from his father. He would punch walls, shout in anger and push himself to physical extremes in an attempt to release the pent-up frustration, but these actions only provided temporary relief, leaving the underlying issues unresolved. He vowed to prove his father wrong, to achieve greatness on his own terms, even if it meant sacrificing everything he held dear. Ben decided that he would no longer seek his father's approval. Instead, he would focus on his own goals and aspirations, determined to carve out a path of success that was uniquely his own. This newfound resolve gave him a sense of purpose and direction, even as it meant distancing himself from the family he had tried so hard to please.